Ezra, run! Jedi Master Kanan Jarrus shouted as a massive explosion erupted in the ship's cockpit. Jarrus lifted his hands in front of his body and used the Force to hold back the flames from obliterating him. However, while he managed to keep the fire at bay, the pressure of the explosion sent Kanan flying through the cockpit's window, knocking him out. The seemingly lifeless Jedi flew from the cliff his ship was parked upon and landed in the waters below. With what strength he had left, Kanan managed to grab onto a log floating in the river. He looked to the cliff's crest to see the flames devouring his ship as he slowly slipped into unconsciousness. Ezra, I'm sorry.
Wow, this guy doesn't look too good.
A female voice said. A Wookiee replied in his native tongue.
Wait, he's a Jedi.
A Jedi? On Lothal? I wonder what for.
She replied.
Whatever the case,
The Wookiee said.
I had good relations with the Jedi once. Perhaps we can save him before it's too late.
A few hours later, the female voice was heard again.
Hey,
She said.
you gonna make it or not?
Kanan opened his eyes to see a green Twi'lek looking towards him. She was beautiful, he thought to himself before fully coming to consciousness.
Do you have a name, Jedi?
Yes, he replied, rubbing his head. My name is Kanan Jarrus of the Jedi Council.
The Council, huh?
She said with a raised brow.
The name's Harris Sanduli.
Sandoli, Kanan said, searching his memory. I've heard that name before.
Of course you have. Seems like everyone remembers my father.
She said, turning towards a screen littered with medical information. Kanan looked towards a nearby mirror to see that much of his hair had been burned off, and he also had multiple burns littering his body. You saved me,
To be honest, you weren't that beaten up despite the burns.
she said, pointing towards the monitor.
It appears you hit your head pretty good. What happened anyway?
I was on a mission with the Jedi Council when I was ambushed by General Grievous,
General Grievous?
she said with surprise.
How is that possible? He's been dead for years. You sure you didn't hit your head too hard?
No, I swear on my life. I remember. Kanan paused for a moment, finally realizing the very last thing that happened to him. Coruscant's gone,
What?
she said.
What does that mean?
It's gone, Hera. The planet, its people, destroyed. Hera still wasn't convinced by Kanan, believing his concussion was worse than she thought. Still, she grabbed her holopad and looked up the galactic news.
Here, I'll show you. If Coruscant was destroyed, it would be...
She said, pausing for a moment. Kanan couldn't see what was on the holopad screen, but looking at Hera's face of shock, he knew exactly what she was looking at.
I can't believe this.
She said with sorrow. Kanan stood to his feet and walked to the Twi'lek's side. Look, Coruscant may be gone, but there's still a few Jedi that remain. Hera studied the news report showing Maul and the Death Star.
What good would that do? This new Sith Empire guy has a planet-destroying space station. If you try to fight him, he'll just take out another planet.
Kanan was caught off guard. What are you saying? She looked from the holopad towards him.
I'm saying that maybe it's in the galaxy's best interest if you Jedi don't fight.
You have to be kidding me. Jarrus responded, offended. Maul is evil. He has to be dealt with.
See, that's the problem with you Jedi. You're always trying to save the day. You lose track of the reason you fight in the first place. For the people.
She turned around and walked towards the door. Kanan followed after her. So what? You just want to let Maul win?
Of course not.
She said.
But he didn't just destroy Coruscant to kill all the Jedi. He wanted to send a message, Kanan. A message of fear.
And that's exactly why we need to take him out immediately.
No, Kanan.
She replied.
During the Clone Wars, my father was always dealing with a force bigger than his. He wouldn't just rush out and attack. He would wait until it was time to strike.
No, Hera, I understand what you're saying, he said as they stopped outside the door of the cockpit. I know you think that if we strike back at Maul, he'll just take another planet in retaliation. But think about it, Hera. He now has the power to take out an entire planet just because. Hera stood silent as she listened to his point of view. Maul is a man holding a blaster to the entire galaxy. He may not pull the trigger, but he still might. So I ask you this, what's better? A bad man holding a blaster who may use it? Or a dead bad man? That's why we need to fight. Hera absorbed Jarrus' lesson before entering the cockpit.
Kanan, this is my co-pilot Chewbacca.
Chewbacca turned towards the Jedi and howled a hello in his direction. Wait a minute, you're Chewbacca? You fought in the Clone Wars alongside Master Yoda, right?
Yes,
He said in his native tongue.
he's a mighty warrior, very strong for his size.
Well, maybe you can say hi to him when we go to Naboo, Jarrus said as he turned towards Hera, attempting to come back to the original conversation.
I don't know, Kanan.
She said reluctantly. But why? She took a deep breath and looked out the window at the vastness of space.
Like I mentioned before, the Clone Wars was rough on my childhood, but war didn't end just because the Clone Wars did. My planet of Ryloth was plunged into a civil war. My father attempted to keep peace, but he was assassinated.
She wiped a tear from her cheek.
That's why I left Ryloth. I didn't want to be part of war anymore.
Kanan looked to the ground in dismay, and after a few moments, he lifted his chin. Sometimes things happen to us, Hera. War destroys us, takes away the people we care about the most. But we're still here, he said, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. We're here to keep fighting. We're here because the ones who fell before us can't. That's why we need to keep moving forward. For them. Otherwise, they died for nothing. Hera turned around to face the Jedi, realizing there was more to him than just a pretty face. She could feel he experienced loss too, and through that feeling, perhaps they could get through this together. She looked towards Chewbacca.
What do you think, Chewie?
Chewbacca smiled with delight as he turned towards the front of the spaceship.
Now, Boo, here we come.
Hera and Kanan traded a smirk of understanding as the ship prepared to launch into hyperspace. The Jedi sat down on a nearby seat as a flash of Ezra slipped into his brain. The ship began to enter hyperspace as he whispered to himself, "Wherever you are, kid, I hope you're safe." What's going on, guys? Welcome to the conversation part of this video. Like I mentioned in the beginning of all the other conversation parts of the previous videos, if you guys don't want to watch this part, you don't have to. Feel free to click away. Maybe watch some of my other videos. Now, with that said, we have 5 different questions today that I'm going to be covering. I won't be taking too long on them, but I'll be covering as much time as I need. So for the future, if you have any questions for me about this series that you'd like to see me answer possibly in the next video, let me know in the comments below. And if I use your question, I'll give you a shout out. And with that said, let's begin with our first question. This one's from Darth Prime, and he says, does Maul have any Inquisitors on his side? And he goes on to say, pretty much, since he's no longer a Sith Lord, he doesn't really have to abide by the rule of 2. And honestly, the best answer I can give you is wait and see. Maybe he doesn't, maybe he does. We just kind of have to wait and see about that. Now, as far as him considering himself a Sith Lord, I would say that yes, Maul does consider himself a Sith Lord, but he considers himself his own type of Sith. He is the Sith Lord. You know how like Palpatine was the Sith Lord? He is now the Sith Lord in his mind. So that kind of answers 2 questions there. Next one, this one's from Argera, and they say, this isn't criticism, but why do you ship Rex and Ahsoka? So this is a question from the previous chapter I made where I had Rex actually talking to Ahsoka when she's passed out about how much he cares about her. And for me personally, I think that the newest season of Clone Wars kind of showed that they do kind of have some type of connection. I mean, it was very subtle, but I kind of read that, and I kind of felt it back in Rebels too, but I never really said anything about it or really touched on it before until this most recent season of the Clone Wars. So I might be wrong about it. I might be completely in the minority here. And for me, I can kind of see it, especially if you consider my story specifically where, they're in a pretty dire situation. Rex always had these feelings about her, and maybe she has feelings about him. We haven't explored that yet. And there is this type of chemistry between them. And Rex feels like he's probably not going to make it out, so he kind of feels like he has to express himself and just get it all out, because who knows, they might be dead in a couple hours. So he's just kind of speaking his mind. I think that's something that is very important for him to do, because as a clone, you're not supposed to like speak your mind, and Rex is one of those clones who kind of just says whatever he wants whenever he wants. And I just kind of wanted to sell that, and I thought it made sense, so that's how I feel. I thought that relationship and the conversation they had really kind of fed into the narrative, kind of made you care about them more. I mean, we already care about Rex and Ahsoka, but I mean like this version of Rex and Ahsoka, to see where they are now compared to where they were in Rebels, or even where they were in the Clone Wars. So that's why I did that. Next one we have from BDub-30, and he says, where is Mando and Baby Yoda in this story? I will not give up until this is answered. Okay, so technically Baby Yoda is alive by this point. But he would be really, really tiny baby. So we probably won't be seeing Baby Yoda. And I think Mando would technically, let me think, he was a kid during the Clone Wars. So, he'd probably be, he was like maybe like 5 during the Clone Wars. So he'd probably be, around this time he'd be like 20, right? So maybe he'll show up. I guess you'll just have to like, subscribe, and make sure to turn on those notifications, because YouTube needs the notifications. If you want to get my videos, you have to turn on the notification. That's just how the YouTube algorithm treats my channel, and that's just the way it is. For our second last question, this one comes from Super Surprise, and they say, is Anakin going to turn into Darth Vader? And for that, I have to say, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn notifications for more. I mean, honestly, if I were to answer this right now, it'd be a massive spoiler. So I'm just going to tell you to stick around and you will find out eventually. And for our last one, it's actually kind of like a two-parter question. And this is from Rafa Ninja TV. I think I'm right about that. And he says, 2 questions. Does Maul have the Death Watch with him? And which character do you think you wrote the best for the character? Oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So let's answer the first part first. As far as Maul having the Death Watch, he does not. Because you have to remember, we established this in the previous chapter. You know, everyone, including the Republic, all of his allies, they thought Maul died. Now, of course, there were some in the background who possibly do know, but as far as the Death Watch goes, no. As soon as Maul died on Mandalore, or allegedly died on Mandalore, that was kind of the end of his Death Watch role. So Death Watch no longer has Maul on their side, and therefore was probably taken down by the other Mandalorians and the Republic. So they no longer exist. Now, as far as asking me who I think I wrote the best, I think out of all the characters, the character I think has the most development, most dynamic, and probably just the most cohesive character, I'd probably say maybe Kanan. And that's interesting to say because initially I threw Kanan in this just for fun. And I didn't actually know if I was going to make him survive, you know, as far as he did, but here he is. The part at the end where he actually explodes in the ship was supposed to be like a red herring to make you go, oh no, he's gonna die, but he did survive, as you saw in this chapter. And I think that I liked his character development the most. In the beginning, he seems like he kind of just grew up to be the typical Jedi Master. And as the chapters have gone on, we've noticed that no, he's still the Kanan we know from the previous Rebels show. Now, of course, he's a little more mature, I guess you could say, a little more etiquette to him. But as far as his character, I think he's kind of advanced the most. But that's because his character in Rebels is probably one of the best in Rebels. So it was a lot easier to kind of take that character and make him better and kind of improve him in certain ways because he was already pretty good in the first place. So it wasn't like too hard to do that. So overall, I think he has the best character development, but I think you guys are going to be pretty surprised by what's going to happen with Anakin. So, like I keep saying, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll catch you guys then. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation part, if you want to see any of your questions answered in the next video, let me know in the comments below, and if I use it, I'll give you a shout out. But thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you later. Peace.